As we log into the dashboard or go to the dashboard, you'll see some of the different modules that we're developing, including the productionized live feature that's been out there for nearly 2 years, the course management module, very much tied into the business processes that are managed and governed by registrar and other administrative offices around the university. I'll be taking you into that module today to take you in and show you how we're managing courses and class information at Columbia. Off on the left, you'll see some of the navigation panes on the left here, help us get back to the main areas. And of course, we'll drill into course management right now. We've implemented a card kind of premise so that you drill into different areas and functionalities. As you get deeper, you'll see some more granular services or functionalities that I'll be demoing here today that include our proposal service or the proposals feature in course management. This feature is used to propose new courses and changes to existing courses that live and are housed in our course inventory. That's the second card that you're seeing on the screen. Historically, any course that's been offered at the university will live here. And if changes were to occur, or if a faculty member was to propose a new course after the approval process, the course would land here in our course inventory. We also have a program proposal feature to help manage high-level changes to program and policy-related information. We recently implemented that for one of our schools here. And of course, we have our course catalog, which is more visible around the university. These are the courses that are actually actively in a given catalog across the university for specific schools and for specific catalog years that I'll demo and show you today. We're managing our class schedule, or we call the semester schedule, in this functionality. This is the class service, and this is how Columbia is actually governing and setting up our class schedules for present, the fall, and beyond. All of that is centrally managed and controlled here. Last but not least, we have our administration piece, which has some admin screens and some administrative features that I'll also take a quick peek at today with you. Let's start with the proposal feature. It all really kind of originates at the inventory and proposal level. So we'll dive into the course proposal feature. It's taking a quick stab at what's on the screen here. You can see that I have the ability to propose a new course or propose a change to an existing course at the university. In this view, I can see my proposals, anything I've submitted, and as you can tell, I've been busy testing and verifying the new development that's occurring around these modules, 109 proposals. Proposals, they're routed through a workflow that includes the steps for review at the department and school level, and even final approval by what we call the CUI, or our Committee on Instruction. So for a course to actually be proposed and successfully added to the inventory, it needs to be approved at various stages or states in the workflow. Eventually, once the proposal's been approved, the course lands in the inventory. Let me show you what it looks like to actually propose a new course. We won't go through the entire form, but I'll give you a sense of what that's about. We'll propose a new course and say, a new course in math. We'll create the proposal, and it initiates the form to actually create or propose a course at the university. What we'll collect are things like rationale for the proposal. We need a new math course. We can also specify the departments or schools that own this course. It could be shared or maybe exclusive to a specific school. Let's say the math department, mathematics. Based on that will actually trigger other optional and required form fields and inform the rest of the steps in the proposal process, steps 2, 3, and 4. Step 1 is rather straightforward. We collect mandatory information like the subject of the course. In this case would be math. We collect the course number, and internally what we define as qualifiers or unique identifiers. Sorry if you saw an intermittent glitch on my machine as I was sharing. It looked like the power flickered, but hopefully you're still with me.
We are.
Good, great. What we call qualifiers or unique identifiers for our courses. We can add those here too. So we'll say this is a math class, math 3500, and it might be offered at the undergraduate level, and we tag these courses, as you see here with these qualifiers. So in this case, we'd have a Math 3500 course at the undergraduate level, owned by Math and offered during, let's say, the fall, open to these schools around our university. And we would give the course a title, let's say an introduction to math. And here, of course, there's these form fields, and then we'll take a deeper dive into this in a bit. These form fields, some can be configured on a school-to-school basis or required across the board. Required fields would be fairly straightforward, like the subject and course number, title, and then schools can decide at the department and school level which form fields are optional for their school. So we'll say, an introduction to math, and I'll say that's also our transcript title. And then I'd proceed through the rest of the steps by specifying things like credits, maybe notes regarding those points or credits. What is this course offered online? Is it classroom? Is it hybrid based? You proceed through the rest of the steps all the way down the line to eventually uploading a syllabi and adding a course description. Now, once I submit this, I'll take us back to the proposals area where we can go and view an existing proposal, a new proposal to test our new comparison feature that I'll demo. We have an existing proposal record that's been submitted. All the required fields were inputted and routed to the department for review. So we see the proposal status badge on the top right. A department level administrator would come in and approve this proposal, this proposal and route it through the workflow process. In doing that, they might decide to, let's say, compare, if this was a change to an existing course, compare the proposal against the existing course. We recently implemented our comparison feature to help level set with some of the functionality you might be seeing out there on the market. In this comparison feature, you could see, we could highlight the differences between, what's changed in the proposal versus the course. So I could see that, we removed the S from the official title on Intro to American Politics, or we maybe added a new school to the Open 2 and added our Barnard College to make this course available to other schools, other folks. And once this is routed to the proposal process, voted on, it would eventually the course would land in our inventory, which you'll see some test information here, some of our testing, but you could see up to 56,000 courses are housed here in our inventory, have historically been offered, active or otherwise. Here's our record of all the courses at Columbia within all the different schools. That's housed here. Now, once a course has been added to the inventory and the proposal process has been completed and the course is in our inventory, that's where I'll take us back to our course catalog. Once a course has been approved, added to our inventory, it's also transferred to the catalog for that current term or the term that it's first offered. Take a look at the course catalog. Now, each of our schools have their own course catalog. So you'll see a list of our organizations or our schools when this comes back. List of all the different orgs, or what we call organizations in course management. We have, the Grad School of Architecture, our Barnard College, our Columbia College. And if we dive into one of the colleges, we'll take a look at Columbia College. We'd see the courses that are offered or were added to the catalog for the 2019-2020 catalog, course catalog for Columbia. And we also see a list of programs. So these are the actual programs that are also offered under that 1920 catalog. Now, it's important that a course is in the catalog because once a course is here, we can add and remove courses from the catalog. This process is automatic from our inventory to catalog when a course is initially created. It's important because once it's added, it can actually be offered on our schedule in the class schedule service. So each of the departments or schools can come in and configure their class schedules here. They do so by adding courses to the schedule that are in a school's catalog. So it's all connected and tied together. If we actually look at the accounting, or let's say Barnard College American Studies department, we could see the department schedule for Barnard College for 2020, let's say fall. We could see the classes or courses that have been added to the fall 2020 schedule here. And this is where department administrators will actually manage the schedule. So they can do so by adding a new course directly, or perhaps cloning an existing schedule from a prior term, quite popular, where schools will say, okay, I want to clone from 2019 fall to fall 2020. Many of the classes in the course schedule may be the same as our prior fall. So let's just copy and activate the prior schedule for fall 2020, perhaps then going in and adding a new course, massaging the schedule as needed. Let's take a look at some of the class information. If I drop this down, we could see that the American Studies 3401 course is offered under Section 001 on the schedule. Section 002, you can see instructors and room information, meeting times. If I collapse this even further, it's where we can start to set information like, what's the enrollment cap for this class? Does it have a special topic? Is there an expected final enrollment? What's the method of instruction? At Columbia right now, we're preparing for kind of a hybrid situation in our class schedule, so we're being flexible and allowing folks to choose and configure in-person classroom options, hybrid, online only methods of instruction. Choose enrollment status. Do we want to allow open for enrollment immediately? Do we want to create a wait list? Is it closed for registration? And we can even control and activate the class right from here. Is it available for registration to the students? We could also add some optional things like meeting patterns or rooms, scheduling of rooms, instructors, restrictions and rules, and fees. If we hop back out, into the schedule, back into course management. One of the last services that I'll demonstrate is more of the administration side of the house. It ties into everything I've shown you. We'll go into academic administration. This is where we can configure and administer a lot of the different things, objects, lists, validation, do bulk operations, create new buildings and rooms, add new organizations, and even control things like the academic calendar, which has become a hot subject at the university given the fall 2020 and spring 2021 situation. If we go in and choose academic calendar, let's say for the entire university, our standard calendar, we could say all schools, academic year 2021. We could specify a start and end date for that year, and specify the start and end dates for these different terms, and offer specific sessions or dates that can be used in the class schedule. So it's connected. This is essentially the way we manage our academic calendar, and that trickles into the schedule and down the line to other pieces that you're seeing here today. Let me just take a step back. You can also manage things like the degrees, organizations. I'll take a quick peek at that. At Columbia, we have an extensive kind of hierarchy. You could see there are many organizations, departments or otherwise, that can be managed here. And what this allows for is more granular control if needed at the department and school level. If we were to, let's say, implement a new feature for the Ancient Studies department, the way we've constructed this hierarchy would allow us to do that so that we can provision and control things at the department level. Advantageous for a situation like Columbia that has an extensive hierarchy. We have things like our main university, which has different schools and colleges. And again, this allows us to control and administer different situations from school to school or department to department. I'll take a step back to the main course management screen here, and you can begin to see this paints a clearer picture about how we're controlling from the proposal state all the way till a course is proposed or conjured up, it's approved, added to the inventory, added to the catalog, which can eventually be offered on the schedule, all of which is administered through our administration piece here. Any questions so far? I'll pause there for a moment. I've given you a lot of info.
There is a question online from Andrea. And the question is if we're going to go over invoicing for sponsors, payments plan, or T98T features. That seems to be the topic the team would like to cover if you offer that.
In controlling 1099 and financial aid info? Is that the question?
Yes.
We don't have that functionality baked into the course management feature yet. If we go back into the main home area and dashboard, you could see we're surfacing other avenues and places, presumably something like managing the financial aid piece, which is on our roadmap to develop and bake out administration screens to control things like 1099 eligibility and whatnot. Right now, we've mostly concentrated on records, course management, advising, and we're in the process of rolling out things like account and financial aid oversight and governance.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you. That's helpful. Anything else on course management from WGU team? I know we have about 8 minutes left. So if there are any questions you would like to get answered, please feel free to ask them.
Is there objects for either micro-credentials or badging at skill levels in this?
In what sense, like user affiliations and profile kind of information?
More along the lines of issuing micro-credentials alongside of full degree components.
Jeff, this is Carlos. Maybe I can answer that.
Sure, jump in.
So in our plans, so Jeff basically went through what we call phase one, which is very administrative, very course management loaded. The actual academic side of things and the student records pieces of the new student system are still in flight, and they're being developed as we speak. In the roadmap for how we conduct the academic pieces of a class, in other words, how a student is enrolled in a class and conducted, and the class is conducted, and how grades are given, etc. All that is still in flight, is still being designed. Basically, if you're talking about competency learning, and being able to have a course that can be broken down into learning objectives, and based on the progress of those courses, awarding certificates or special, like you say, badges, that would be something that could be configured in the future. So, at Columbia, we have very mainstream, as you can imagine, we have very traditional course objectives that are taught in each course. And then as a course, you build up to a certificate. The closest that we have at Columbia is in the special School of Professional Studies that offers something similar to what you will be asking about. And that is that based on certain components of a course, if you take, let's say, the first half of a course, and then you take the second half of a second course, etc., they're able to build a specific batches or programs based on specific competencies that are being instructed in those courses. So again, it's not going to be something that will be rolled out for Columbia, but the way that we build in the system is one where the schools, not only at Columbia, but outside, could configure it to be meeting those requirements. So again, while we don't have it as something that we will roll out, the configuration will be available for either department schools within Columbia or outside to be able to do that.
Carlos, can you speak about what you're rolling out for invoicing for sponsors, payment plans, or 1098? I think Jeff is covering what has already been rolled out. If you could speak to that a little bit, Dennis, if you want to comment also, I think that would be helpful so that, we need to look at more strategically what they would wind up getting as you release into production within Columbia, right? If you could speak to that question, that would be great too.
Yeah, so there were, just to give a sense as to how important those three items that you mentioned for student financials are, that the way that we modeling our production of this new system was with one basic premise, and that is that there are three major components of our student system that we wanted to replace. Course management was one, student records and enrollment was two, and the third one was probably the more important one, what we call student accounts or student financials. So all the components of being able to calculate tuition and fees, be able to apply payments and have both charge and payment priorities, and then be able to apply financial aid, be able to accept third-party contracts that will be used to waive fees, and then be able to build the sponsors. All that stuff is coming up in what we call in phase 3. And
so Carlos, if that's the most important, why is it phase 3?
Because you know, we before you charge tuition, you need to have students enrolling in class. And before you can enroll in a class, you need to have the class set up. So the way we built it was that if we were not going to be able to get away from getting rid of our system as a whole, let's get rid of it in chunks. So we went backwards. We said, okay, if the ultimate goal is to graduate a student, what does it take to graduate a student? So from the same perspective, we say, okay, if the ultimate goal is to charge and receive payments, how do we do that? And again, if we cannot charge a student without knowing what classes they're enrolled in, then let's not do charges yet. Let's do classes first. And then we cannot get people into class unless we set up a class, and you cannot have a class without a course and a course without a department. So we basically went and said, okay, how do we build for two principles? One is build something that's gonna benefit the university, and two is the ability to remove certain functions or systems within the existing ecosystem that you have, so that eventually you're moving people from one system to the next. So when you look at student financials, student accounts, financial aid, relationships, there's not too many third-party tools in student financials or student accounts area that could plug in well to the, you know, the Workdays, the PeopleSoft, the Banners, the colleagues. So that's what we consider one of our cores. So if you remember, I think what Dennis or Jay might have shown you earlier, when we look at the core of the system, you'll see that you have course management, degree audit, enrollment, and accounts. Financial aid is going to be interface, admissions. And the reason for that is that we look at the market, we look at what the process or a student life cycle mandates. And while you can do well in getting admissions through an application and maybe financial aid through another, having a very well integrated solution that manages your account based on the students and, you know, load, based on your students' residency, based on your students' X, and more importantly, that it ties very well to your GL and your receivables systems, then, you know, that was it. So we have it as three pieces. You know, when I say phase 3 is something that we're going to overlap maybe with phase 2. But again, there was one of those things where, like, one thing we did not want to do is to have a full-blown, you know, one of those big bang deliverables. We did not want to have a system that's going to take 3 or 4 years to develop and have the university continue to wait for that improvement. So instead, we chunked it up. And again, we just basically, very logically, we went and said, okay, look, if charges is something we want to address, we're going to have to deal with the things that we deal with now in having the right enrollment count, the right program of, you know, the right fee setup, et cetera. So instead, let's do it front-ended and say, okay, let's start with a course, let's start with a class, students enroll in a class. At that point, then you can do tuition.
It makes sense. Thanks.
Carlos, I know we have 1 minute left, but do you have a timeline on when you are planning to roll it out? What stage of the development are you at right now?
So right now we are in the middle of phase 2. Phase 2 is the advising, enrollment and registration, and student records. By the time phase 2 ends, we will have everything that we need to have a standalone student administration, a student record tool. Phase 3 follows that. Now, we're not doing it in sequence. Once we have certain components in phase 2 that will enable us to start phase 3, the idea is that we will start phase 3 in an overlap manner with phase 2. So
I have Columbia's calendar sequenced production cutover if anyone would like to see it month by month and phase module by phase in terms of actual production shutdown of mainframe that frankly is been driven by Carlos. Does anyone want to see that? And then Jeff, maybe if you can stop share, I can show that for anyone that wants to see it. Does anyone want to see that?
I think it'd be helpful. Let me ask one quick question at a high level. This is Kurt. I'm coming from the accounting and finance side of the house. What GL and receivable system does Columbia currently use, and is that going to stay the same?
So we use PeopleSoft, Oracle's PeopleSoft Financials, right? So financial management system. Are we going to stay with it? The answer, I think, is yes. We recently upgraded to the latest, and latest meaning the last version of PeopleSoft, which is 9.2. Spend a lot of time and effort. So I don't think there's a desire right now to make the university go through another change.
Right.
So we're going to stick with PeopleSoft. We are going to stick with some third-party bolt-ons that we built that stand between our student system and PeopleSoft. The way that we're building the new SIS is one where knowing that we need to
Kurt,
be a little more.
Carlos, one second. Except Kurt, that Barnard is off doing finance and HR and Workday.
Correct.
So the game is to support PeopleSoft, obviously, for most of the schools, and still support, because we have to, sub-school, namely the Women's College, Barnard on Workday for finance. Does that make sense, Kurt?
Yeah, so you've got you've got to somebody, at least one of your folks on Workday. The integrations will be built to accommodate that, and then will the receivable module, both for for Columbia and for your other key participants in this, is the receivable module inside of their ERP, or is it kind of external, like it would be in Banner or something like that, or
Yes.
does it matter?
Well, two things. So Jake had it right. I was going to get to that, where even
Right.
though we're staying with PeopleSoft, we are not building it to be a PeopleSoft plugin. We
Right.
need to be cognizant. Columbia itself needs to be ready for the next opportunity to upgrade our environments. One of the things that held us back for 20 years was that every time there was an opportunity to move to a new system, the university wasn't ready, technology wasn't ready, the business process wasn't ready. So one thing we're doing, even with the new system, is that we're building it so that if in 5, 7, 10 years, there's a better solution, that we should be able to more quickly react and more positively react to changes, right? So when we build in the receivables account system, we're doing it so that it actually integrates with the PeopleSoft, with the Workdays, with GL systems that are not necessarily tied to a student system, SmartStream. We're going to do different ones. So it's a microservice, it's an API driven. We should be able to not only improve on that integration, but the fact that, be able to see almost real time the transactions that happen based on a student enrollment and see it in your GL almost real time is something that we're looking for, and that will be part of the process. Right now, Barnard uses DataTail's colleague or Illusion's colleague, so their receivables system is integrated with their student system. We use a mainframe, and our mainframe has student accounts and is integrated to that. In the process, however, of evaluating what the next steps will be for us, we have looked at the market. We have looked at products that may attempt to fill a percentage of the needs in a receivable account for a higher ed institution. We do not see anything out there that would be, at least meeting our requirements. So what we're doing is we're going to build our student account system in a way that is going to be a little more robust than anything you'll see out there. But more importantly, I think, is the flexibility to be able to plug in to the third parties that we now having to deal with for collections, for billing, for all those things that, again, there's a better way to do it, and we just haven't had a chance to.
Dennis, do you want to add anything to that, or is that?
Yeah. Actually, I would love to, Kurt. From our perspective, and I'm from the Unified side of the house. Our whole integration layer is built on the idea that all of these different applications, whether you're using, we don't really care what GL you're using, to be honest. As long as there's a way to move the data from one point to another, we can do that through the integration layer. And in most cases, through the REST APIs, we can do that in real time. So when you're ready to push information from your accounts receivable system to your GL, and you're happy, you're ready, you close the books or whatever, you just move it right over.
SAP is already being implemented at Westcliff as part of this architecture. And there's another school, Alabama A&M, implementing with Microsoft Dynamics for finance, because we shouldn't force people. We should let them use the tool they are happy with and they like to do their finance and financial reporting because they've already invested in it, or they just like SAP better, or whatever else it is. So we're already supporting beyond the Columbia adapters. They're built as adapters, so we can plug the SAP essentially adapter in for those who want to roll like by design, for example, for finance, but run HR on ADP. So Oklahoma Wesleyan is running HR not on Microsoft or SAP or PeopleSoft, but on ADP for HR and payroll, for example. So that flexibility is for some institutions more sophisticated that understand, that they need sort of this notion of a single neck to choke with best of breed, meaning that things need to work together without them being the vendor of record for that accountability of data integration. And then we have, like Dennis said, a product in the quote unquote student system that most student systems don't have, called a service bus, to do exactly that, if that helps in terms of Kurt. So you can either stick with what you want or you can change it, and you'll wind up changing it to one of these 6 or 9. They're not infinite options. There's like 6 or 9 good ones in our space, right? So, or stick with, and it allows schools also migrate incrementally, like we're seeing schools migrate, certain pieces like Luminous first or CRM second. Everybody's a little bit different on how they want to do the, as you can see, Columbia's timelines for actually shutting down the mainframe over the next 18 months, kind of a window. Kurt, did that help?
Yeah, I think so. And it sounds like you're going to see student accounts, and the GL are, different puzzle pieces in your schema and your vision. And I just wanted to know whether or not there's a plan to actually develop a receivable system, or is it just feeding a third-party receivable system? And I think I'm hearing the answer to that.
Yeah. So, again, I think we will try to build it. I think the goal is to build it. But again, given some of the changes, not only with this virus and how we conducting business at Columbia, is making us kind of take one little step back, just one, so that we can rethink a longer, more solid vision that could be more flexible. I think, what's happening now with the virus.
Carlos, what did the virus have you rethink on the receivable side or on the flexibility of the system? Can you give a few examples?
Yeah, but for example, right now we're trying to institute, for example, subterms. So, trying to accommodate the social distancing rules here in New York. We have instructed the schools and departments to change how we instruct. One of them is by making courses more intensive. So, the schools have a choice now to instruct the course in the regular time frame, or they can make it an intensive course and teach it on the first half of the term. That way they allowed social distancing rules to apply better. So now we're having to have multiple subterms within a term. And within each subterm, you can take classes. So for example, a student will enroll in the fall, in September, for 16 units, and that will be for the whole term. Now, the same student can enroll in, let's say, 6 units in the fall and 14 in the, or 10 in the second half of the fall. So the idea is this, is how do we charge tuition? Because it was based on a full-time enrollment of 16, 12 and above is 16 is full-time, whatever. Now we're asking the departments to, okay, based on these new rules, students should be able to say, okay, I want to take 6 in the first half, 10 in the second. How does the system now calculate tuition that it doesn't consider the first half a less than half time and therefore a unit by unit cost, knowing that in the second term, you're gonna take 10 units that will make you full. So all these things that are saying, okay, our system doesn't take that. Our system says, look, it's very simple. How many units do you take? Anything under 12, I'm going to charge you by the unit. Anything over 12, I'm going to say what program you're in and what graduate level you're in. Now we're saying, based on these rules, is how do we anticipate the student enrolling? How do we, for example, another thing that we do at Columbia is tuition by being online or in person. Now the schools are being instructed to conduct a percentage of their classes in a hybrid mode. And the hybrid mode is in 2 flavors. One is 1/3 of the class is in person and the second 2/3 of the class is online. As you know, the rules on online as far as financial aid are different. And the way that we charge are different. So for us to say, okay, all of a sudden we need to have this calculation where based on your load, the rules don't apply, has caused a lot of issues. And it has asked the SFS groups to do a lot of manual processes.
Marta, I know you're probably cringing too, right? Just because we have a job to keep the trains on time. This is a work of a lifetime for Carlos. You could probably get a sense he's so deep in it. He's also implemented every student system at like 30, 40 colleges hands-on himself. And Dennis as well came out of retirement just for the opportunity to make a difference in a domain he spent 34 years in at one institution, you can imagine. So this is a long, very big train that is, and all of the, I think we, to do justice to what, WGU is not a small, organization. It is well respected. I would say #1 in the business domain that you innovated, frankly. So I just want to pause and say all of these discussions and these details are where the magic really happens and the rubber hits the road. And I'd suggest that they be done with due time and due diligence to make sure that we're headed to the same planet. Like we're headed to Mars and you're not headed to Uranus, but we're really headed to the same destination and can effectively commit to the delivery and the flexibility that you need to be able to frankly do something different. And I had a great meeting with the CIO of Jacksonville University, who was previously at Harvard, and he said it in his own ways. Albert Einstein said it in his own ways, but if we're going to do something different in the few years that we have left, I mean, I spend most of my time, having my kids watch Blippi and do all these other real human things. But if we're going to make a difference, we really need to change the input and not keep just doing the same thing and replacing blue to red and, red to green, because that's not going to give us a different result. And I want to give Columbia and maybe WGU a little bit of that vision. Indira Gandhi has 3.5 million active students. So we think we're really big and cool. There are some giant worldwide tidal waves coming, and we need to prepare our schools for that vast of an enrollment. And if we're not thinking around those objective and those models for the future of flexibility, flexible learning, we're really going to come short for the next 20 to 25 years. And see there's 30,000 colleges in India. Like they're starting to wake up, which is what I mean by tidal wave. So I think these are some important, more strategic elements that, again, we should discuss. In technology, we shouldn't be pivoting technology, or trying to catch up with the Joneses on the underlying tech. So Marta, thank you and your team. We respect the time so much. We hope that at least this was useful for you in the research and discovery process of what of what we're doing with Columbia University and Unified as you evaluate if this is a good team to join forces with. We also will want to do that assessment and evaluation, because we don't want to this is a little bit of a joke for like Top School or old PeopleSoft. We don't want to overcommit and underdeliver. So everybody on this call is execution delivery, and nobody on this call is essentially sales. So thank you so much for your time.